One way to take an ordinary screen insert replacement like this and then turn it into this, give it some life, is to add reflections. But oftentimes, when a screen is filmed, it's not filmed with the screen off like it should be. And so there's no free reflections to add back on top. The light is actually contaminated with the practical screen content. So today, I'd love to share with you how to do a screen replacement inside of DaVinci Resolve Fusion and actually reuse inverted tracking data so that we can mimic some fake reflections from moving screens. And I might just do a little swipe there, a little light swipe. That's going to make your screen replacements all that more realistic. The footage is up on Cutting Club if you'd like to download and follow along. That's creativevideotips.com, where you can get access to the footage for all of these free YouTube tutorials. This is the main plate we're going to use for our composite today. It's a Nintendo Switch and it's already ACES CG, which means it's already linearized, so we don't have to worry about that. But the screen insert, this Tetris effect graphic that we're going to use to put on top of it, is not. So I'm going to show you how we deal with that. I'm only going to bring one clip into the Fusion page, and I just want to bring the main plate. So I'm going to disable what's on video 2. So that I'm basically just building everything off of this clip and it retains all the source resolutions and metadata of this main plate. So to get into Fusion, I just have it selected, click the Fusion button, and we're in. And you'll see, because it's linear, it's darker than you would normally expect the image to look. It looks kind of messed up. It's not made to be viewed this way, is what I'm trying to say. But there is what's called a viewing LUT, so we can temporarily view this in a way that actually makes sense to our eyes, and that's by clicking this little button up here. It's a view LUT, and mine is currently set down here to color space transform. So if you're used to the color page using these, it's doing the same thing. It's not baking it into the footage. It's just for viewing only. It's just for this viewer. And mine is set to, if you take a look here, it's ACES AP1 linear, which means ACES CG. Going to Rec 709 and adding the tone mapping. Now the other element I need to get in here is the Tetris effect graphic. So to do that, just click Media Pool. I'll just drag that into the flow over here. However, this guy right here is not ACES CG. It was just recorded as standard Rec 709, or you could say sRGB. And so the way we need to get this guy linearized so it'll match and everything, and all the light levels will work properly in the composite, is I'll add a shift space ACES transform afterwards. And the way we want to set this ACES transform, the one thing I like about this effect, there's not so many options like the color space transforms. We're going to go from sRGB texture to ACES CG. And that's basically it. You could do the gamut compression or not. I think I'll just leave it on. It's not a big deal for this. But the idea is sRGB texture is going to slightly modify the colors, but it's going to make all the math work so that the light gets properly placed onto the screen. Now that that's all done, let's get into tracking with the Planar tracker. So what we're going to track is, obviously, it's a screen. And what I'm looking for is, where's the actual screen, the largest and sharpest? Well, not a big difference in this shot because it's a simple one, but maybe we'll start at frame 0 after median 1. So I'm selecting median 1 first. I hit shift space and I start typing PTRA. That's a shortcut for it. And once this is down here, I'm going to pick and flick to load it into the viewer. And I want to start clicking on this image around points that have some sort of contrast, but I want to try to avoid reflections as much as possible. One of the nice things about recording screens when they're on is there's a lot more to track on it that it can grab onto. The bad side is we lose the free reflections. So what I'm going to do is just click anywhere on this surface that's coplanar, meaning it lives on that same sort of surface range. It doesn't have to be specifically corner pinned or anything like that. This area right here is just grabbing tracking data, tracking information. This has nothing to do with how we're actually going to position the screen. Something I didn't understand when I first started learning how to do this. Once that's done, over in the track section, we need to say set. If you're not on frame 0, just click set, and that basically says at this frame, this is where we're going to set up our corner pin in the next step, right? So, and everything is going to be related and looking back to this frame as it pulls track data. The tracker type, we'll choose hybrid point area. If you can use this one, it's always going to be a little bit more accurate. It runs through the tracker twice and it throws out bad data by itself. So motion type is perspective. You're always going to need perspective. Most of the times you're going to need perspective on a handheld device like this. And then we just hit this thing right here to track forward. And purposely for this tutorial, I made it an easy one to track so we can focus on adding the fake reflections. Way we actually test to see if this track is any good, we actually can't tell right now. Probably not terrible because the lines aren't jumping all over the place. But the way we actually check to see if this track is actually valid is we go over to operation mode, change this to steady. I'll go ahead and hit set on frame 0 to steady it around frame 0. And we come in here with our cursor, we zoom in. It's a command, a middle mouse wheel, or I've got a middle, it's command mouse wheel, or on my Wacom, it's the middle left and right drag. And what you do is you park your cursor somewhere. Let's put it on this little, this yellow guy right here. And then you play. And if that doesn't jitter too much and it doesn't move, then you have a successful planar track. A corner pin basically is what's happening. And you want to do that in different sections, especially along the edges of where you want to be replacing something. That looks good, and you're just sort of checking, is this moving at all? And what's happening is you're locking it off. You're completely making it stationary in this view, and if it moves at all, you've got bad tracking data and you got to go fix it. But we're moving on from this stage right now. I'm hitting Command F so that we can focus on doing the screen insert. So we are going to use this in steady, but not quite yet. First, let's get the screen on there. I'm going to move this over to the side, and we're going to come back over here to operation mode, back to track, and I'm going to export what's called the planar transform. So it's basically baked tracking data from here. I'll just click this. You see it drops that out into my flow, and this has all of the movement information in it so that this screen here can follow the movement of this screen. We just have to set it up with our own corner pin. And the reason we're doing it separately like this is so we can have an alpha channel separate for applying our reflections, maybe even applying a tilt shift blur effect. So let me give myself a little bit more room to work here. And what I'm going to do is grab a merge node. Merge node's right up here. Merge node just says, hey, what's the background? What's the foreground? And I think the foreground should be our screen, but it just covers everything up. Like this isn't what we need quite yet, and we need it to move. Well, we need to stick this in between here. I'm holding down the shift key to get this thing to move. And you can see it is moving, and at that very first frame, remember we set a reference frame, you can see the corners are completely pinned at that first frame, and then it starts to wobble all over. But it doesn't fit to those corners quite yet. Well, the idea when you use the planar transform or run stuff through a planar transform like this is you need to set up the actual reference frame so everything looks correct on that frame. Then it just follows along. So let's go back to the first frame, and we'll add what's called a corner pin node after the ACES transform. Or corner positioner, I guess is what it's actually called. And what you'll do is you'll take a look at the media in one so we can actually see where we want to position these corners. And on the corner pin, we can select this node and we can just drag these points to the corners of the screen of where we want this thing to get like distorted, transformed into. So this is just doing it on, think of it like a still frame. That's our reference still frame. And if you can't quite see those corners really good, a great thing to do is hold this waffle button, and we can gain up or gamma up that viewer a little bit so you can see where's the actual screen living. So we can get real precise. You know, you cannot do this quite so easily on an edit page, but it is one button press away to getting access to, you know, very high-end style compositing tools just by clicking the Fusion button. So I think that's not too bad. The reason it's not moving along right now is because we're looking at the state of the media in right now. So let's take a look at the merge, load that, and now we should actually see, yep, that screen insert works. And what's really nice that was added not too long ago is in the planar transform, there's this scale to source thing. So you used to have to make sure your resolutions matched, which they do in this, but you don't have to do that anymore because of that checkbox, which I think is awesome. So the secret to adding effects onto just the screen only is to set things like a planar transform and take these out of the tracking node so we get access to this if I hit A, just to restrict effects to just this section. That's why I don't do corner pins directly within the tools, like in the point tracker or in the planar tracker. I like to always have them separate. So let's build a fake reflection, and let's do a little organization. And we'll just go straight top down with this sort of stack that we have for the screen insert. And the idea for the fake reflection is, let's just grab a background node to start. And on this background node, it's completely black. I'm going to change this so it's not solid color, but maybe a 4-color gradient. And the reason why is because we just want to sort of paint with light. I'm going to take the top left color, give it somewhere in the mid grays, and we'll just play with this and see how it looks as we add the light back on. Okay, so maybe it's a little darker down here, a little brighter towards the top, but essentially what we're going to do is, let's actually mux this up a little bit, like dirty this up by adding what's called a fast noise. And what the fast noise is, it's kind of like clouds or smoke, and it doesn't even animate, and we don't even need it to animate to work on our fake reflection here. All I need to do is have something that I can combine so that I make this even more irregular looking. So I'll merge these two together. I'll take the output of fast noise, stick that on the top of this background, and then this is way too bright, so I might come back over here in the fast noise, change the color of the second color so it's a little bit darker again. I could increase the contrast of this, you know, and then even in the merge, if I wanted to change the operator, maybe we change the apply mode to something like multiply. We've got a big degree and sort of a difference in the variance of how much light is getting faked and coming through here. And it's the same on all frames. Like, I haven't done any animation to this at all. Maybe we bring this down. And the other thing that might be good to sell the reflection is just like some actual little highlight streaks. And we can do that with a paint node. So with merge selected, I'll just click the paint node that's right up there. And let's see what this might look like with a little bit of paint. The one thing to know when you use the paint tool for the first time, just make sure you choose this third one over, this third icon. That means it's going to paint on all frames. And then all you need to do, I'm using the command key, holding that, dragging left and right to change the size. But I'm just going to paint with white. And I might just do like, hey, a little swipe there, a little light swipe. I don't know, something like that. If I want to erase part of it, that's one thing I love about using a Wacom stylus. I can come over here and just sort of be sort of soft and do sort of whatever sort of marks that might, you know, make it a little bit less intense. But now we want to stick this over the top of the screen. And the thing to think about is the screen is handheld, so it's actually moving. So that means the reflections need to move, but the reflections actually need to move in the opposite direction of what is actually on the screen itself. Now this is a fake 2D way of doing it. There's actually perspective that's inverted on a reflection, but we're just gonna do this and pretend it's all on one flat plane just to give it a little bit of grit, a little bit of texture. So how do we get the inverted motion of this screen? We can't use the planar transform output. There's no way to invert this that I know of. If you know, please leave a comment down below because I would love to use a baked out transform. However, remember how we checked this with the steady mode? That's inverted tracking data. So I can use this right over here. So I'm going to do that. I will just take the planar tracker, and this is what's going to move our fake reflection. So the planar tracker set to steady, and we'll have it steady off of the first frame. So it's doing the exact same thing. We'll take the outputs of this paint node over here. So you can see this, you can screenshot it. And what's going to happen here is on the first frame, it's corner pin locked off. But on all the other frames, it's getting that inverted movement. So it's moving in like the opposite direction as the actual screen was, which is what a reflection would do. To put this back over the top of the screen or the image, all I'm going to do is just merge this. I'm going to take this, merge this on top of the original screen, and this is what we get. And one of the secrets to working in linear like we are today is because we can just add these pixels as if it's light being added on. So I'm not going to screen them because it's going to get tone mapped in the color page, But instead, on the merge node itself, there's not an operator down here called add. However, it is built into the merge node if you want to use it this way. And the way you do an add with the merge node without finding this, and it is in the channel booleans, by the way. But if we just take the alpha gain and bring that all the way down to there, this is an add. So alpha gain down to 0 means we've added that light back onto there. And the last step, when we did the planar tracker, remember we talked about how we have this alpha available. If we hit A for alpha, we can say, hey, we just want to add light in just that area. So merge nodes affect what's in the green foreground. All that needs to happen is we take the output of the planar tracker, and that has an alpha ready to go, and just plug that into the blue mask over there. And there's our fake reflection. And all of this can be modified. It probably should be toned down. That's another reason I like to do reflections on its own layer, because the merge node itself, this blend slider, is like a transparency to it. So you can just tone this down a little bit if you wanted to just be, a lot more subtle. Maybe you don't want 2 of those over there. No problem. All of this is live and editable. So you can go back to the paint tool, the modifiers over here, and these are all of the strokes that made up the painting and reflections that we had worked on. Some of these are eraser ones, so maybe it makes more sense to just, come back over to the paint tool, select it, and do some erasing. Just make sure when you do it, you're on this one that paints on every frame, and we can come in here and sort of, paint some of that reflection out. And so it's a really subtle thing to really sell this thing, but that's really all that you need to do to it. But a really simple thing you could do to add a little bit more realism to this is everything is super sharp in here. You could defocus it. And defocus works great in linear, but there's also what's called a tilt shift blur, which has like a gradient ramp of blur in it. So I like that a lot for screens. I'm gonna add that with shift space, and that's called tilt shift blur. It's actually a resolve effect, not even a fusion effect, but it can work nice as well. You just wanna position this while looking at the reference of the original, I think makes a good idea. I'll come to my B buffer so I can see the original. And then I'll come back to the split wipe, which just gives you a comparison between the before and after. And so I can sort of see what was the defocus like, on Super Mario Wonder up here, and then get this thing to kind of match. I'm not going to even track this. This is just a quick little way of saying how much tilt shift blur do I want to add. And we see that there, it's very filmic. It makes the highlights really pop. It's actually way too much. So we'll just bring that down a little bit, and then you can say how much of this do we want to actually be in focus. Looks like if we go to the right, it's a little bit less intense. But it's a way to sort of add a little bit more of that realistic defocus to your image. But we don't want to defocus everything. Just like we took a look at just using the alpha channel from here, we'll do the same thing into the tilt shift blur. Just drag down into here. We'll say this is going to be our effect mask. And now when we added this, I'll turn this off and on with Command P. You can see I'm only adding it to the screen insert. And one more thing to this that is probably a good idea to do is on the planar transform, anything that we made move in Fusion should have motion blur, and it doesn't right now. So not just defocus, but motion blur. And anything that moves something has a switch to turn on the motion blur. So under the planar transform, go to settings and click motion blur. And you might as well turn that up because 10's better than 2, right? It's basically sampling 10 frames left and right to give you a more realistic motion blur. We'll just come down here to media out, and I'll give you a review of the script that I've got going on. So we've got media in 1, it's getting merged. That's basically all of this screen replacements running through this planar transform. It's all based off of frame 0 because that's where we started our tracking for the planar tracker. Corner positioner is basically saying, hey, where are these corners on the reference frame? And it's all getting put back together. Now the secret sauce to getting that secret sauce, don't say that. The secret to adding everything back together here is just these masks that come off of the planar transform. So you can add light by using things like a background node gradient with a some of this fast noise that's on it, maybe some paint strokes. You could use an image itself. Just make sure you convert the image or some other frame from a scene, maybe a reverse of the scene, convert it to linear so that all the light adds properly. And in the merge itself, what you want to do is just do a normal over operation, but bring the alpha gain down to 0 and adjust transparency, which is what the blend slider is to taste. And once that's done, add grain. I like to add grain. If you're using fake grain, I like to just do that over here on the color page. The film look creator is great if you just say clean slate, and you can come down and say on the grain tool, enable grain. And let's see this nice and large. That's with it off. That's with it on. It's a subtle thing, but it really just, it ties that whole composite together. Hey, if you're new here, my name is Chadwick. I super appreciate you hanging out with me today, learning how to do a simple screen replacement. And because there's so much more to learn, I'll see you in the next video.